This is things I wish I could say in Sunday school. I want to share some thoughts and ideas that are different than what we usually hear. My goal is to be really honest rather than inherently faith-promoting. I hope these ideas may spark some interesting discussions with your friends, families, or classes. Please enjoy. This is the lesson for September 16th through 22nd, 3rd Nephi chapters 1 through 7. Today's topics are being prepared is freeing and division within the church. The story of Lachoneus saving his people is a great example of the importance of preparation. The Gadianton robbers were very strong and sent an epistle to the chief judge demanding that he hand over the country essentially. This will probably expose my political leanings, but I got January 6th vibes from this story. I'm going to read 3rd Nephi chapter 3 verse 12. Now behold, this Lachoneus the governor was a just man and could not be frightened by the demands and the threatenings of a robber. Therefore he did not hearken to the epistle of Gadianton, the governor of the robbers, but he did cause that his people should cry unto the Lord for strength, against the time that the robbers should come down against them. Then Lachoneus gathered his people and all their substance together so they could defend themselves more easily. The robbers could pick them off one by one. Lachoneus and his people could survive for years like that. The robbers could not. They were not prepared to cultivate crops or otherwise support themselves. I think this is a powerful lesson in preparation. I am not a doomsday prepper. I don't go crazy about food storage or anything. I like to have backstock of all my basics. I also live in a hurricane-prone area. I don't have to panic buy stuff when a bad storm is coming because I make sure I always have enough to be okay if it's not safe to leave my home or we are without power for several days. It does feel freeing to me when my neighbors are worrying themselves sick and I'm not, because I know I always have reasonable preparations in place. That is all preparation for physical needs. Another major part of this is mental and emotional. The anxiety and worry can be a lot. People worry a lot about unknowns. Something that I like to do when I notice my anxiety and worry is rising is to think about worst-case scenarios. It's a little counterintuitive, but thinking concretely about the worst thing that can happen will lessen the stress for most people, rather than obsessing about the unknown. In the hurricane example, if a major storm is going to hit my area directly, we evacuate. The worst-case scenario is that my home is destroyed. Even if that happens, it's okay. I have insurance, I can build a life in a new place, I have extended family that can help me if I really need it. My family will be okay if the worst thing happens. What I found more mentally and emotionally taxing was all the unknowns around the COVID pandemic. The world was learning about the virus while being ravaged by it. I didn't know how long until public officials allowed me to safely reopen my business or how we would cope financially. That was a really difficult time. I didn't know what the worst case scenario was for my family. No one did. Anyway, I just want to emphasize the peace and freedom that you can feel when you prepare what you can. You have so many more choices. Failure to prepare often boxes you in and limits your good choices. And I wanted to share my worst case scenario trick that I use to help me calm down when my anxiety and worry are rising uncomfortably. Next, I'm going to discuss division within the church. I'm going to read 3rd Nephi chapter 6 verses 13 and 14. Some were lifted up in pride, and others were exceedingly humble. Some did return railing for railing, while others would receive railing and persecution and all manner of afflictions, and would not turn and revile again, but were humble and penitent before God. And thus there became a great inequality in all the land, insomuch that the church began to be broken up. Yea, insomuch that in the 30th year the church was broken up in all the land, save it were among a few of the Lamanites who were converted unto the true faith, and they would not depart from it. For they were firm and steadfast and immovable, willing with all diligence to keep the commandments of the Lord. I think it's super interesting that there was such a division within the church that it broke up. In this example, wealth disparity and the privileges that come with it is the source of the division. I feel like in the last couple decades, there has been growing division within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's very different for us than here in the Book of Mormon. For us, the division is just leading people to leave the church in droves. The church isn't being broken up, but wards and stakes are closing. A lot of this is because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is so monolithic in its structure. The old men in charge only let other old men in charge that agree with them. So there isn't division at the head of the church. If someone displeases the men in charge, they're easily removed from their position, or if they publicly embarrass the church, then they are excommunicated. There are some reasons that despite there being quite a division within the church won't be broken up. If I were to summarize the division, on one side, the leaders of the church and many of its members want it to remain a very high-demand religion, expecting its members to conform to a narrow range of acceptability. On the other side of the division, many members want the church to broaden who is fully accepted in the church and embrace our more expansive doctrines. I am on this side. For example, I want the church to fully accept LGBTQ members. It feels so wrong to exclude our brothers and sisters because they are in other places on the sexuality spectrum. I want the church to acknowledge and apologize for our racism. Black people were excluded from full membership until 1978. Racism is a part of our scriptures. In the chapters for this week, converted Lamanites had their skin color changed to white. The manual just pretends that this racist garbage doesn't exist, so we don't talk about it in our congregations. But the racism in the church is pretty deeply woven in. Until it's fully acknowledged and uprooted and we stop tolerating racism in the church, it's unfortunately going to continue to persist among our members. I also want women to actually be treated equally to men. It's a bunch of patriarchal nonsense that we don't. That's how I view the division within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints now. Some want our church to evolve, to basically accept everyone and treat everyone equally. The leaders and some members only want to accept people that will conform to the institution. This is a simplification of the issue. We could go more in depth on all of it, but there's value in distilling an issue into its simplest form. But there are no simple answers. I would love to see my church change dramatically to become more inclusive. Yet, when churches do that, there is usually a decline in membership. I don't think there's a compromise that would satisfy most people. So, I think the thing to do is to do what's most loving to most people. I think that's what Jesus would do. Every time my church makes a move that isn't loving, like the newly revised transgender policy, I get so sad. I feel like my church is pushing me and a lot of others out. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. Please share with family and friends. Until next time.